What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Down the Middle with Max and Los. Today, we're bringing up some awesome topics before we head out to Miami for the Founders Mastermind, which is Max, Jeremy, Sean, and Tim Bird's mastermind in Miami at the Live Hotel, which is going to be awesome. If you guys are going, make sure to DM us. Let us know that you're there. Well, by the time this thing comes out, we'll actually be with everybody here.
It'll be over.
Yeah, but if you're interested in going, DM us and you can come to the next one. So how are you, bro?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, dude.
Yeah, it's a nice little drive down to Miami.
I love that hotel. I hate driving back from Miami. I actually hate driving to Miami. Like Fort Lauderdale, I feel like I'm done, and then you get this extra hour of like, that's when it gets rough.
Well, from us, it's just a boring drive because it's literally just one road. You're going down 3.5 hours on a single road, no change of scenery, nothing.
Can't make it fun.
And it's not fun. It's boring, and at least you have something to look forward to when you're going down there. Usually it's on vacation or doing something. When you're coming back, it's always like back to work.
Right. Yeah. Miami's been going crazy, man. Like I feel like they have a crypto conference every other day.
Yeah, I thought they just, because I think they have another one coming up
this
in
weekend.
April. Okay, so it's this weekend. Well, yeah. But I thought they just had the really big one.
Yeah.
So this is a different one that they're having.
Yeah, I don't know if this is crypto or just specifically NFTs or whatever, but like Miami's become the crypto NFT hub.
I mean, the mayor's done a really good job of attracting, tech talent and getting people down there. And that's a differentiator. It's always been hard to attract like the typical Silicon Valley entrepreneur to somewhere other than San Francisco. Mm-hmm. But like Web3, it seems like they've kind of carved with this niche and they were kind of ahead of the curve, and that's attracted a lot of that talent. So it's building momentum.
And San Francisco become a shithole.
Yeah, I think San Francisco, after when COVID hit, it was like, I've been saying for years that I think it's ridiculous.
I don't like it.
You have to live in this one city to raise any money. Like it's illogical. It makes no sense to think that you're going to get all the talent in the world.
Bubble.
Yeah. And it's just everyone's in this echo chamber, right? But I think COVID pushed people. It's like, wait, we don't have to go into the office anymore, so we can really live anywhere, and I don't have to pay
egregious taxes,
just ridiculous taxes, ridiculous. I mean, what are you paying in San Francisco to live in a 200 square foot loft is ridiculous.
Our houses together is probably a 2-bedroom.
Yeah. Probably
like not a nice 2-bedroom, just a 2-bedroom.
No, there's definitely probably like a group of homeless people out front
for sure,
shooting up and
definitely
and
needles,
taking dumps
heroin
on the porch.
Everywhere. Yeah. Well, San Francisco sucks. But today we're talking about different things. We're gonna get started with the biggest meme and thing that's happened here over the past day, which is Chris Rock getting slapped by Will Smith, defending Jada Pinkett's honor.
I'm just going to call the episode, just the title this time. It's just going to be Will slaps Chris. And that's it.
Rock, paper, Will slaps Chris. The slap heard around the world. So, I'm a big TikTok conspiracy fan. I love going down the rabbit hole. They do a great job like feeding it. And if you look at different angles, it could be looked at as it could be fake. I don't know if it was fake or not. I don't see how you could get that mad that someone made fun of Jada's haircut when Jada was banging a guy named August and there was no repercussion. Like there was a video of her on like the Red Table show that she has interviewing Will about their relationship, the whole entanglement that happened like a few years ago, where she was like, yeah, like I just wanted to feel really good. So I was sleeping with another dude and he was chilling about it. And then someone says something about a haircut and he's like losing his shit. I just don't buy it. But, I mean, obviously no one knows. The Oscars need ratings. There's another conspiracy theory that the Oscars are sponsored by Pfizer, so it's just another, like, decoy to, like, get you to... I don't even know the point of that would be. I don't believe that one. I just think it's... I couldn't get that mad, I mean, she has alopecia.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the... And what's amazing to me, and this is like, we're obviously talking about it, so it's, this kind of negates my point here, but like the fact that everybody even cares,
right,
is amazing. The fact that like we're like, this is what's interesting about the American people and us as a country, and it probably just at a broader sense, people around the world in most first world countries, is our amazing ability to lose focus on things very, very quickly and to get distracted very, very quickly.
Right.
Like we have this, maybe we need it too. Maybe we need things like this to happen because we have so much bad stuff happening. Like, nothing else has changed. We're still verge of World War III. We still have a president out there like this is probably the greatest thing to happen to Joe Biden. Like that's a better conspiracy theory, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Is that Joe Biden called up Will Smith and said, and Chris Rock on a 3-way and said, I need you guys to do some distractions because I'm about to have some gas this weekend.
Yeah.
Obviously it didn't happen, but like we can talk, it's not on the topics, but like he made like multiple massive gaffes this weekend. Basically said we'll respond in kind when somebody asked what would happen if Putin launched chemical and biological weapons.
Oh, New World Order.
He said we'll respond in kind. I don't think he knows what in kind means, which means the same. So basically we would respond to chemical weapons. Terrible thing to say. And then he also said that guy can't stay in power, which means regime change. But then so really bad weekend for him. Terrible weekend. But anyway, back to the Chris Rock, Will Smith thing. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, if you look at it, he was laughing. So the camera's panned to him. He was cracking up. He thought it was the funniest thing ever. And then Jada, her face changes real fast, and he glances over at her. She was
almost smiling though
initially, and then she got real angry. And then he looked at her, and the next thing you know, you see Chris like, oh, here's coming, and he's on stage. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of people who have a lot of free time because I saw some like images of like NFL, NBA play-by-plays, like diagrams. It showed Chris Rock, like it was pointing to his way. His chin was pointed, his stance, like every little detail was analyzed and like to prove that this is a plan. Like he was ready for it. He was waiting for the punch. He was leaning into it. I don't know. I just don't see how it could have a positive payoff. Like that's my thing. Is like, I think just on the face of it, like, yeah, it could be fake, but like the outcome of it, it's like somebody had to plan it to be a stunt. And you have to know that eventually it's going to come out that it's a stunt. And I don't think anybody's going to think that's like a good stunt. I think it's going to be very negative. So if like your idea is like positive PR and publicity, I don't know. Maybe people are just idiots and they don't really think that far in advance.
That's a thing. I mean, if it's fake or if it's not fake, frankly, people should get jobs. Because who cares that this is so big? Second of all, if it isn't fake, Will Smith slaps like a bitch because, I mean, he is way bigger than Chris Rock, and Chris Rock just took it and, like, laughed at it. Third, what is crazy, because I saw this, a lot of people talking about this, they're like, I stand with Will. People need to know that there's consequences, blah, blah, blah. Listen, he could have made, literally, he could have made a joke about, like, his wife getting smashed by another dude. That's funny and, like, kind of disrespectful. He's a comedian, and he was brought in to be a comedian. He roasts people on, a lot of situations. That's what comedians do. Yeah. Like, if you're censoring, like, he can't say anything now because there's consequences. There's a consequence for him talking about a chick not having hair, but there's no consequence for Will Smith. Literally, it is now around the world. Chris Rock could just sue him and be like, yeah, the guy walked up, slapped me, I'm going to sue you. And there's like zero consequence on that, which that kind of is crazy in itself. Like, if anything, I think slapping, if I said something bad, not even crazy, and you slapped me, I think the slap is bigger than the thing.
Of course. In any rational world, we're not living in this weird fantasy world. We're living in the simulate, wherever we're living in now.
We are living in
the real
simulation.
world. But in any real world, like a few years ago, and then for 1,000 years before that, there would be no equivalence here. It would be this person said something, this person assaulted that person. It's not a debate.
Right.
And like I tweeted this yesterday, and the fact that like this even has to be said, the fact that we even had this conversation, that there is a group of people, a large group of people, who are saying that these are equivalent actions, and that Chris Rock said something mean and he shouldn't have said something mean, so that justifies physical violence, is insane to me. And this is a big part of our country has been pushing for this for a while now, of saying that speech equals violence. Therefore, if you say something that we don't like, we can commit acts of violence and aggression. We can destroy buildings. We can destroy cities. We can assault people. We can do all kinds of crazy stuff because you said something that was mean or offensive. And listen, you don't have, like, this is where I go. Like, there are plenty of times that people say things that I think are awful or mean or terrible that I don't agree with ethically, personally, morally, whatever it is. At the end of the day, we live in a country where we are granted the ability to say what we want to say within, and there's hate speech, there's things like, yelling fire, like that, there's words you can't say because they instigate, a response that leads to injury, right?
Mm-hmm.
But within those scopes, outside of those scopes, like, you're allowed to say what you want to say. Like, if we start living in this world where a comedian, are comedians now just going to have to be in fear of, like, they said a mean joke to somebody in the audience and they can get attacked and people are going to be on that person's side? Like, fuck that. I'm sorry. Like, that's ridiculous.
Right.
That's totally ridiculous.
I'm telling you, I really feel like in the next 10 years, freedom of speech is going to not be a thing.
No,
like,
it's like
it can't. Maybe even 5. Like, there's going to be rules of speech rules.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like us. We do this show, and we enjoy doing the show. And I'm sure there's lots of people who listen that disagree with what we say.
Yeah,
that think what we say is wrong, or they just disagree with personally, or more, whatever it is. Like, and that's totally okay. And you could say something that's exact opposite, and I disagree with it. What's scary is, like, if this train of thought keeps getting played out, it's like that guy just delivered Uber Eats here. Maybe he's a listener of the show who hates what we say, comes in, punches us in the face,
shoots us,
or just even like attacks us, and people are like, well,
he said something.
They said that mean thing on the podcast, so that guy was able to show up and attack him. Like, I think that guy's justified.
He's a hero.
That, I don't know what world we're living. Again, like I said before we started this thread, like, the fact that we even have to have this conversation, this to me is like, and this is going to go down a rabbit hole, but like, we now live in a world where large chunks of the population do not agree on fundamental facts, or just fundamental things, whether they're facts or not, but like things that have been agreed to for a very, very, very long time, since the beginning of time, and probably will be agreed to by most people for the future. Like, we're living in this weird bubble where I think it's going to eventually pop and go back to normal. Like, the fact, it's almost like we're living in a world where we all know 2 + 2 = 4, but like a year ago, a group of people just started saying, like, let's just fuck with people and make 2 + 2 = 5, and make people believe that if they think 2 + 2 is 4, they're crazy. That's what I feel like the world we're living in right now. It's like that there is now a large group of people who control the way we think what is normal, and they've convinced the masses that 2 + 2 is 5, 2 + 2 is 6, and it's like making me go crazy. I don't like. I think a lot of people are going crazy because they don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I more and more believe that Elon Musk is right, and we are living in a simulation. Like, it's just because life is just becoming ridiculous in some points.
When did we decide that we don't make this a topic? We can go on to the billionaire tax and stuff, but like the Supreme Court nomination, Ketanji Brown, they asked her a question.
Oh, yes.
And of course, listen, Marsha Blackburn asked a question, and of course it was a gotcha question, right? But she asked her point blank, can you define a woman?
Mm-hmm.
And she said she's not a biologist and she's not qualified to answer that question. Listen, like, I support anybody and everybody with whatever they want to do. Whatever pronoun you want to be called, whatever sexual orientation you want to have, whoever you want to love, I support you till the end of time. That being said, like, how can we not define, like, we can't live in a society where we cannot agree on the definition of words.
It's scientific.
And I don't understand how, like, if you're the party of science and you say that the other party doesn't believe in science, which a lot of time they don't, like, there's a lot of things on the right that, like, they just totally throw science out the window. But you can't say that, like, you're the party of science, and then when somebody asks you, especially on that side, like, define a woman or define a man, and you say you're not qualified. That's like that's like saying somebody asks you, what's 2 + 2, and you're like, I don't have a PhD in mathematics. I can't answer that.
But dude, imagine going to school, high school, college, whatever, and taking a test and then just replying back, well, I'm not a scientist. Well, I don't feel like responding to this. I can't. And I mean, based off what you just said, that would be the correct answer. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess you're not, like, so I can't answer that. Because, like, she refused to, like, she was asked like 3-4 times that, and she was like, no, I'm not, is it raining? Like, I don't know, I'm not a meteorologist. It's fucking raining on right now. To say no, I'm not a meteorologist, is just as ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't understand what is going on anymore. Like I don't know how you raise, like, especially as now a parent of a boy that's eventually, like, I'm getting to the age now where we're gonna have to start explaining stuff to him. He's almost 2. Like, how do you raise a child when you can't explain fundamental things? Like,
Facts.
I grew up in a world where, like, I was taught facts, right? Like, chromosomes, XX, XY, you have sperm, you have eggs. Like, there's fundamental parts of biology that are different. Like, the weird argument that I have is like the Supreme Court one, this thing, right? You're simultaneously celebrating Ketanji for being a female black Supreme Court nominee. She's going to be, make history. And she's going to be one of the few females on the court, women on the court, right? Which is amazing. But, like, how can you simultaneously celebrate her for being a woman and doing these things, but at the same time say, basically, a woman doesn't mean anything? Like, the arguments are so flawed. You can't be like the same people who are like, we need to fight for, equal pay and equal rights, and women need to be on more boards, and women need to be this, which, again, like, I agree with. I think that's great. I think men should be equal in every capacity. But you can't say that, be a feminist, but also at the same time say, basically, women, it means nothing. It's just a word, like, anybody can say they're a woman. Like, how can you be a feminist and supporter of women, but, like, say it's okay for, today I just want to say I'm a woman today. I'm a dude, but, like, I'm just going to say I'm a woman today, and I'm going to go in and do whatever I want to do as a woman. I'm going to do I don't understand it. We're changing the entire fabric of our society around a relatively small percent of scenarios. And again, like, I think individuals that have gender identity issues or that want to transition, do these things, like, I support that.
Do you?
I support that. I will call you whatever you're going to be called. I will support you. I'll fight for you. I'll do all these things for you. What I'm saying is,
call a guy and a girl a girl.
I don't think we should be changing the definition of words and how we've done everything for all time for billions of people because of a small percent of people. If that's the logic, then we do that for everything. Like, then it's we start changing the rules for all kinds of subgroups and individuals and people with medical issues and medical conditions and people with social issues and mental issues. Like, that's you don't want to let out of the cage, because you can't put that back. Like, I don't know. And in these topics you can't even talk about because it's so toxic, and you just get called whatever the phobe is, right? You're a phobe, whatever, insert first word phobe, right? It's like, no, we should be able to have, these are massive changes we're talking about to society. We should be allowed, everyone should have a voice and should be able to talk about this.
I'm going to get smashed for this, but you know who I love listening to have this discussion about these things? Ben Shapiro. He's the best because he just shuts it down. Boom, 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 boom. Everything. I'm like I said, I'm probably going to get shit on it for it. But, I think he's right on a lot of stuff. On that particular thing, like a woman is a woman and a man is a man. Like, it just kind of is what it is because of your body parts. You can't deny that. It just is what it is. But whatever. We'll move on to the second topic. So, what do you got for second topic?
So, Biden's bringing back the billionaire tax, which every time they try to bring this up, it gets no momentum and never goes through, but they're going to keep trying. I think it's like the third attempt in like a year and a half at a tax on billionaires. So the new proposal from his budget is a 20% flat tax on unrealized gains for households with over $100 million in net worth, I believe, which is like 0.01% of the population. Now, two things here. One, I do think that billionaires should be paying more. I think that's the idea that like, hey, you know, you still pay a lot more than normal people, like, but you only pay a few percent of your overall income and what, like, I don't think that's great. I don't like the argument that a lot of people use is, well, you know, teachers pay more taxes than billionaires, and they don't. They're using the effective tax rate. They pay a higher effective tax rate, but 20% on a $30,000 a year salary is not the same as, you know, 5% on $100 million, right? So like that's a ridiculous argument.
Right.
And you know, a lot of these you know, billionaires and uber wealthy people, they really game the system. They use like crazy systems like these free ports where they can basically buy really, really expensive assets, art, stuff like that, and then basically keep them in these facilities at airports called free ports that, because they're at the airport, they're in transit. And because they're in transit in perpetuity, they never get taxed because they're never actually at a destination. So you can basically, if you're uber wealthy, buy a Monet or a Picasso, put it in one of these really fancy free ports, and then you can borrow against it. You take loans out against it. So you have a $500 million painting, $100 million painting, take a loan out on it, and now you have your cash, right? I think that's a crazy system. I think a lot of criminals use it. I think there's a lot of bad things happening there. But the solution is not to use this ridiculous tool of tax unrealized gains, because I think that's just makes no sense at all. And we can talk about that. The solution is look at the loopholes.
Right.
So why are people doing this? Because that's the way the tax code's written. If you want to fix it, fix the tax code. I think a lot of people, I agree with this. Like, if the tax code was literally just it's like either just increase the sales tax, a VAT tax, or just a flat tax for everybody. Like, go for it. I would be more than happy to not. I pay my accountants more money than I used to pay in taxes because it's so complicated, because all this shit. But you have to do it. It's the name of the game. Like, you got to play the game.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of people that we know that I've learned a lot in the tax side of stuff. And the more I realize, the majority of the tax laws are meant to protect your assets. They're not meant to, you know, and you find that out as like you start creating more revenue for yourself and like building more wealth and things like that. The fact that you even have the concept of taxing unrealized gains, like it's such an illogical like concept, because you could lose unrealized gains the day after you're taxed them.
Yeah.
Like I can't even explain how dumb that is.
Yeah. So for people listening, because people might be listening not understand how financial markets work. So when you buy a stock, okay, so you buy Apple stock, and you buy it at $100 a share back in the day, right, before splits and stuff, $100 a share, and it goes up to $1,000 a share. On paper, you've made $900. Mm-hmm. You're worth $900 more than you were before, because Apple stocks increase in price. If I sold Apple stock, I would have that much money. Mm-hmm. It's called unrealized, though, because I haven't sold it. So it's not on my bank account. I can't use it yet. And at any moment, the stock market could tank and it could go back to 100, or it could go to 50. Mm-hmm. Right? So what Los is saying is, if you tax people on unrealized gains, let's just, for a simple math, we'll go 100 to 1,100. So you've made $1,000, and you have that 20% tax. So now you pay $200. You get taxed $200. But the next week, the stock goes to 40. Now you've paid a tax, and you've also taken a loss. And then in the future, now you're going to be able to use that loss to deduct your tax. It makes it so crazy. It's not a smart system because it's so volatile, and it's not money in the bank. It's not cash. It's just, it's in this volatile asset class. So yeah, I think it'll never pass.
It makes no sense, because also you can, a lot of investors are not traders, so they keep things for multiple times. If it's unrealized, like you said, and you get taxed on it, and then after that you lose it, the next year, I guess, what would happen is you can actually get a tax write-off because of the loss.
Yep.
But how would it work if would you get a tax write-off plus the extra tax and get a repayment on that? Like, it would be the most convoluted, weird structure to create something. It's just such a ploy to take from people instead of building tax incentives for billionaires, high 100 million net worth people to build more jobs, create more opportunities, force them to build funds or 501c3s, nonprofits. Instead of like, it's so combative instead of like collaborative that they're trying to just be like, we're going to take from you, instead of being like, hey, we're going to talk to some of the highest net worth individuals that we can connect with and see how we can get them to give more money while them having some sort of, benefit from it as well. The government gets some, and public schools or different things like that. It could be supported differently, but it's thought so aggressively and like take-ish instead of like, how do we build together in community?
Or, tax, look at the way they get cash out, which is taking loans. Like, figure out a way to charge a tax on that process, because that's what's being used, not the unrealized gains. It's the fact that they're borrowing against those gains.
Yeah.
Tax that. Like, basically say, hey, if you're getting cash, whether it's by income, whether it's by selling assets, whether it's by getting a loan, tax, if you're over a certain net worth, tax that, or, change the inheritance tax, change the step up. Like, there's all these things that are more realistic to go after than unrealized gains, because taxing unrealized gains, this is the argument a lot of the super progressives make, is, hey, we're talking about 0.01% of the population. This is not impacting most people. And that's true. The tax itself is not. I think it sets precedent. I think if it ever got through, it would be moved to 10 million net worth, million. I think
100%. And you don't understand what it would do to the market.
That's my next
manipulation of the market would be so volatile, because they would be playing with certain parameters it would be like finagled.
It would that, and also if you think about where most of these guys and women who their net worth is, that would be taxed, right? You look at Zuckerberg, Bezos, Musk,
It's
right?
shares.
It's the stock in their companies they founded. Okay. So they own huge chunks of these massive companies. These companies are also some of the most popular stocks in Robinhood, in other trading apps. So a lot of, middle income people, a lot of younger traders who don't have a lot of money, they're buying and selling stock in these companies. They're believing in Tesla. They believe in Amazon. They believe in Meta, right? So if you tell Elon Musk, hey, you have a $25 billion tax bill this year, he's going to have to sell a lot of stock, okay? And what happens when you dump a lot of stock? The price goes down, right? It's supply and demand. If there's a lot more supply out there of stock than there's demand for it, price goes down until it meets it. So what you're doing is you're forcing these owners who own huge chunks of companies to dump massive chunks of their stock into the open market, which is going to dramatically decrease, maybe not in the long run, but at least in the short term, decrease the share price, which is going to hurt all shareholders. And again, like, not all shareholders, especially after COVID, there's a lot more young traders, a lot more middle income, working class traders that got into Robinhood and stuff. So you're going to hurt a lot more people than just the 0.01%. So that's the reality. And then also there's, especially if this starts spreading down to 50 million, 10 million net worth, you look at illiquid stuff. So this is just looking at public markets, right? So if you're Musk or Bezos, there's a market, there's a huge volume for their shares.
They're trying to include crypto in it too.
Yeah, they can easily sell their stock. What if you're a hardworking entrepreneur? And again, this isn't going to be incredibly common, but it is a thing to think about. If you're a hardworking entrepreneur and you spend 5, 8, 10 years, put all your life savings and all your time into building a company, and you raise some money, and then that company starts growing really fast and you own a big chunk of it. And then that company raises a big round of funding, okay, raises $100 million at a $5 billion valuation, and you own 50% of that. You're now worth $2.5 billion. You don't have $2.5 billion. You probably don't even have $10 million.
You're probably getting a salary right now.
You're probably making $100,000, $200,000 a year, and most of your comp is in stock options.
Right.
So what if you're now in that pool and now you owe 20% of your $2.5 billion net worth? You can't even do what Musk or those guys are doing. You can't sell stock because you're a private company. You're a startup. There's no real market. There's a small market, but it's not very, very attractive. And you probably take a big discount, take a big hit. So you're going to get hit hard with the tax bill. Then you're going to have to pay to exercise the options, which is a taxable event as well. And you got to come out with cash to exercise the options. And you're probably going to get a bad deal because you have to sell on the private market and fewer people. So that there's less, less options, less buyers, you're going to get a worse deal. I think there's just so many bad outcomes here, that taxing unrealized gains is not the option. It is never going to be approved, ever.
It would be impossible.
It's never going to be approved, ever. It's not constitutional. I don't know why they keep trying to do this. It makes no sense. It's idiotic.
Every time a company went public, it would immediately pretty much owe enough money to be out of business. Yeah. Because of how when a company goes public, usually it spikes up and then it'll kind of settle back down. People are buying and selling.
And the founders have a lockup period.
Exactly.
So how do you deal with that? It's if you're a founder, you have a lockup period. So for people watching, usually what they do is when you go public, the founders, early investors, they have a 6-month, 3-month, 9-month, 12-month, different lockups, which means they can't sell their stock. They can maybe sell a little bit into the IPO, but they can't sell a big chunk of their stock until that lockup period is over. That's to prevent basically all the early people from just dumping all their stock and hurting the stock price, right? And taking all the cash out. So if you go public, like right before tax season, the end of the year,
you could end up with debt.
Yeah, it's you're worth a few $1 billion, and you owe the IRS $200 million, and you have a few $1 million in your bank account, if that.
Yeah. Are you going to jail?
And you probably live in San Francisco or New York.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
It's stupid.
I mean, I don't think it's going to pass, but it's just these kinds of things are like, I really feel like, I don't care if you're left, right, middle, it doesn't matter. Just like people in the government it's high schoolers, like just kindergartners thinking. Like, I really believe that you have to have some sort of like business acumen or have worked at a company to, and I really also think there's got to be an age range. I don't think 60, 70-year-olds need to be making decisions, because you and I are, I have a 7 and a 12-year-old, and I have a lot of friends that are in their high 30s to mid 40s and even 50s. And I have friends that are 40s and 50s that have no idea what's going on in the world. Like I'm 40 years old now, and I'm on top of everything because of like my industry and things like that. Like if they went out and I went out and we both were in the Senate, the conversations would be completely different, because I live I live in the now. They're living on like how they were raised and how they grew and they stopped kind of like learning these things. And that's what happens in the government. They just kind of go with that, plus all the shady stuff that happens. And so that's the kind of decisions and laws that you're trying to put out.
Yeah, it's they're the worst. I across the board, left, right, center.
Politicians suck.
They're the worst, and I pray that one day we get a clean slate and like a do-over with just bring in a bunch of new blood to run the country that has a pulse and knows what's going on.
All right, third one. What is the third topic that we have?
You want to talk about the WeWork stuff?
Yeah,
you were watching that show.
So there's 2 new shows out for anybody that's interested in like business, TV, different things like that. So one of them is about Travis Kalanick, who is the CEO, was the CEO and founder of Uber, and the second one is I forget his name, but he started WeWork, and it's played by Jared Leto, who's honestly, the dude's like an amazing actor, and I think he's a vampire. He's actually playing a vampire in Morbius in April, but the dude looks the same as he did when he was like in My So-Called Life on MTV. Freaking crazy, ridiculous. So both shows, really good shows. There's also Netflix specials on both documentaries. I believe that they're both on Netflix. I like the WeWork one better because it just the stuff this guy did was just insane. And I've never seen a rise and a downfall turn out so well for somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he walked away really well, and that company imploded so fast. They were like a few weeks out from a SPAC. They were supposed to go public, and it was like one story after another broke, and like you watched a multi-billion-dollar unicorn just dissolve
immediately
in a matter of days, which was impressive. And SoftBank, who backed them, and the founder of SoftBank was like a big friend, and like it's a whole thing. But that guy, I mean, he was trying to build. I'm drawing a blank on his name. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll have to look it up. But like he was building basically a cult, and he wanted to do We Live, like everything was the We brand, and he had people, if you watch the documentary, like living in this like ecosystem. He made this like apartment building, and people just like lived there, really couldn't communicate with the outside world. They lived, ate, worked, everything together inside this place. Like he had these big summer fests that were like, like Woodstock, really strange, like what he was trying to build, and came pretty close from like being a real estate company essentially to being a cult, and then to being nothing. But he did lots of crazy stuff. So like one of the things he did, brilliant, like very immoral and unethical, but like he basically set up his own companies, and then those companies that he owned 100% of acquired the IP for like the We brand, and then WeWork paid massive licensing fees to those companies to use those names. So he was like just pulling cash out in all kinds of creative ways. I don't know if the investors didn't know or they just didn't care because it was also growing so fast.
Yeah.
But he was using that cash. He was funding Buddy's businesses. He was investing in all kinds of things with investor capital. But yeah, like didn't go to jail, didn't have any repercussions.
I think he ended up with $238 million.
It was several $100 million that he walked away with.
A ridiculous amount. I mean, he should have been fired and broke. He ended up wealthy and happy and successful, and I'm sure he's going to come out with something at some time soon.
It is interesting. You look at the difference between how his story ended and what's her name, Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos, right? Like
she went to jail.
And there's a documentary now on hers. I watched the actual documentary. Yeah. Again, like I'm more a fan of documentary, but they now have the actual like, acting version of it. They both, I mean, again, I think what she did was obviously probably more direct fraud, and she was just worse about it. But they were both crazy. Like she did crazy stuff. She like purposely started deepening her voice to sound more masculine. She started wearing turtlenecks like Steve Jobs. She did lots of she was kind of cuckoo. But they both were selling. I mean, I guess this is what's an interesting thin line in the startup world is there's this big motto, fake it till you make it. Mm-hmm. That's like the motto of Silicon Valley. Fake it till you make it, fake it till you make it, and sometimes you make it, right? And that works out well for some people. And then other people, it ends up what happened with WeWork and Theranos and all these other companies where like essentially that's what she was doing. She was living that motto. She was faking it. She had this big, bold idea and it wasn't there yet tech-wise, and she faked it. And again, her faking was defined now as fraud. But like, I've seen some sketchy stuff out there. It's a very gray line between faking and kind of fudging things to get people excited and faking it and it being fraud because you're over the line faking. Like
are you a visionary or are you a fraud?
Yeah.
You're probably both.
Like I wonder, so this is again what it goes back to is like, I wonder if she got another year or 2 years before everything fell down on her.
If it would have came through.
And if she had a breakthrough, if she would still be running the company.
Because, I mean, the reality, I always say this, like, raising money is a business model in a lot of ways. A lot of people think, like, oh, man, like, raise money. Like, when you raise a lot of funds, go to Series A to, like, Series C plus, like, you're going from one deck to the next.
It's
like
a full-time job.
As soon as you raise the money, you are back in, like working on a new deck, getting new people, working on the valuations of your company. You're not actually working on the company, which is crazy. And I've seen so many companies go from there to either IPO or a SPAC that, especially last year and when COVID really hit, like it's ridiculous because these are all super seasoned people, but I guess it's all part of the charade and the plans and the scam,
I mean, I did like, again, that's the first thing I did when I was in college. I ran a venture-backed company. Mm-hmm. And all you do once you get into that once you get out of like the friends and family and the seed is you are traveling 24/7 basically to pitch to venture capitals.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing. And hoping that the team back in the office is doing things
their
well
stuff
while you check in with them. That's all you're doing. But I remember in those meetings, like you're pitching fairy dust. It's like, hey, we have a great product here and a great idea, but like this is where we're going to be in 5 years, 10 years.
It's an NFT.
It's all BS. Everything we said is like,
it's a roadmap.
It's a roadmap to get you excited, but I have no idea. Like the technology might not be there. That's literally what every single startup founder is doing right now. While we're talking, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of startup founders that are in, Silicon Valley, New York, in all these places pitching VCs right now. And they have a slide deck with some slide that shows their 5-year growth chart, their 5-year income statements, 10-year financial statements, and it is all 100% BS.
A few strategic advisors, a couple of nice slides, and
it's
easy
all
funding.
BS. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's either, you know, this person's going to be right time, right place and be smart enough and they're going to make it work, or they're going to be like 99% of other people and it's going to be wrong time, wrong place. They weren't smart enough. They didn't have the skills and they're going to fail. There are so many variables outside of your control. And yeah, I mean, so like the WeWork one is interesting because it's like that guy just was able to kind of get away with it. Theranos she was not able to get away with it.
No.
You know, Travis at Uber was, you know, he, you know, did a lot of shit, but made his money and is, you know, a lot of people hate him, but he doesn't care. It's like he's moved on.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many startup founders that have been successful or built large businesses that have clean reputations.
No.
That have done things all perfectly ethically and morally.
No. Maybe, no, yeah, definitely not. Well, that's it for us on this one, guys. Next week, we might be talking to you a little bit about Max and I's new thing that we've been doing. We've been getting started on some crypto stuff. We might give you guys some information on that. We created an NFT guide also that we're going to give to you guys absolutely free. If you download it, just check the podcast, and we'll get you all the information. So that is it for us. My name is Los at Los Hustle at Max Finn. We will see you guys on the next episode. Please make sure to subscribe, share this, and post it on the internet or on Web3, whatever makes you happy.
Somewhere.
We'll see you guys later.
Later.
Bye.